So the first step in making the grill was to make my slats, cut and weld my slats. And the way I did that was I established the angle of the bumper and the hood to figure out what I wanted the arc of my grill. Once I established that, in this case it was about a 10-degree angle that I needed to cut here. So taking a Swanson, basically an inexpensive framing tool for construction, I set it on 10 degrees and then I marked it. And so I marked a wedge or a triangle that was not quite the full depth of that. I kept about a 1/4 inch here, and a friend of mine told me to cut about 80% of this and then bend it. It'll maintain the face. This edge will be nice and finished off. It'll be easier to do that way versus cutting that completely out, turning it and welding it. So you're going to get a more consistent bend or angle. So I found the center point of my grill or my slats. I made these longer than what I needed, and then I marked that. Once I marked it, I actually made a pattern of that angle that I could use to duplicate this. So I just lay it down, mark it, flip it over, mark it again. And so that's kind of a handy little tip to just make a pattern, especially if you're going to try to duplicate several pieces. So I've got it marked, and I cut it with a jigsaw. I found that the easiest way to cut that out. And very quickly I discovered that you need to set the speed down low on this, or it'll just tear the teeth off. After about 4 or 5 pieces, you're going to end up changing blades. If you slow that down, I've cut several pieces with that one blade now. So I'll cut that out. So I just lay it right on the bench and cut it out. So now I got a nice piece with a wedge or a triangle cut out of there. And as you can see, I left a portion of it on the top, so that edge is going to be nice and finished. So my next step was to duplicate that angle for my grill, and I made a jig, and the jig's out of metal. And so the way I made it is just took 2 pieces of, it's about 1/8 or 3/16 steel, a little wider than my grill. It's 1.5 inches, I think, roughly. Made it a little wider than what I needed it, and then I welded a bolt to the bottom of it. And that bolt will slide through. My anvil's got a hole in the top of it, and that bolt slides through that hole, and then I just put a washer and a nut on the bottom, and that'll hold that down flat to the anvil. So you don't have to tighten that up too much. I just snugged it up. So that helps. That anvil gives you a place to mount it to. It elevates everything. You can turn the anvil. You can spin this if you'd like to get in here and weld it. So Once I got that established, the next step was to take my piece of aluminum and bend it to fit this angle. And that really bends fairly easy. Let me see if you can get a picture here. I want to make sure you can see that. Okay, so all I'm going to do is grip that and bend it. See how nice that bends? It maintains that edge. And then you just bend it until you get it to the angle of your jig here. There it is. That aligns my jig nice. So the next step is I take just some 120 sandpaper and I sand that off. Just open that grain up on the aluminum. Flip it over and do the same thing. And then you can see there's a slight pucker right here on the edge because that metal wants to pucker up when you bend it. So the next step I take is a hammer. I just put that on right on my jig there and tap that. Levels that out. Sand it. Make sure the pucker down, and then you can clamp that in place. And you just take a couple small clamps to start with, line up the outside of it, get the inside to where it belongs. And then I take some better clamps and I snap those into place on both sides. So that holds it. That holds everything in place. When you weld it, it doesn't want to twist. These will stay at the right angle. And it also acts as a heat sink. When you TIG weld this, aluminum gets hot very quick, and this will kind of absorb some of the heat, which can help. So I cut all my pieces. Then I clamped them in place. Then I TIG welded them. And after I TIG welded them, I sanded them. And you notice when I sand them, I put masking tape over the anvil, over my pattern, to keep, because aluminum will scratch fairly quickly. So I usually tape everything out and cover it. And then, so after I sanded it, I polished one out just to see what it looks like.